Sean Diddy P. Diddy Puffy Combs has now been charged with sex trafficking and denied bail. So there's a conspiracy theory that basically he was working for the FBI and providing sourcing on a wide variety of other people. Maybe that's true, maybe that's not. Bottom line is, he has now been indicted around a series of extraordinary charges. He's been charged with racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking for alleged crimes dating all the way back to 2008. According to the Washington Post, the indictment alleges the embattled music producer, quote, abused, threatened, and coerced women and others around him to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. He's accused of creating a criminal organization that carried out and covered up his alleged crimes, including sex trafficking, forced labor, interstate transportation for purposes of prostitution, coercion and enticement to engage in prostitution, narcotics offenses, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. That is many crimes, actually. That is a lot of criming by Sean Diddy. You know what? I, for one, am appalled at the lack of moral standards by a fellow rapper. I cannot believe this. I am shocked and appalled. Wow. Knock me over with a feather. Combs' charges of racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion carry maximum sentences of life in prison if he is convicted. The sex trafficking charge has a mandatory minimum 15-year prison sentence. Transportation for purposes of prostitution carries a maximum of 10 years in prison. Combs pled not guilty to all three charges in that Tuesday afternoon court appearance. Now again, the arrest came a year after the first of 10 sexual assault lawsuits filed against Combs. Several of those lawsuits accused him of sex trafficking, which is in fact a federal crime, and they say that the accusations span the entirety of his more than 30-year career as an artist and music producer, which of course always raises the question in the entertainment context of what did people know and when did they know it? And the answer is kind of probably like Harvey Weinstein. Everybody knew because they knew and everybody knew. And the reality is that Hollywood is a terrible place filled with perverts, and that many of those perverts are protected by fellow perverts or people who are afraid of the perverts. You don't want to be the first person to speak up, especially when people are very famous and can damage you and harm you. An attorney for Combs said, "We are disappointed with the decision to pursue what we believe is an unjust prosecution of Mr. Combs by the U.S. Attorney's Office. Diddy Combs is a music icon, self-made entrepreneur, loving family man." Well, that's one description of it. Now, again, the allegations are particularly extraordinary. Apparently, Homeland Security agents raided his houses in March. They're part of the sex trafficking investigation. During the search, law enforcement seized narcotics, more than 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant used in Combs' directed sex performances called freak-offs, according to the indictment, as well as ammo, a drum magazine, and firearms, including 3 AR-15s with defaced serial numbers. Well, that seems bad. And then he used the embarrassing and sensitive recordings he made of the freak-offs as collateral against the victims, a sort of a Jeffrey Epstein sort of suggestion. And he was having these sex parties, taping them, and then using them to blackmail people. He maintained control over the victims in several ways. He gave them drugs. He gave and threatened to take away financial support or housing. He promised them career opportunities. He monitored their whereabouts and even dictated their physical appearance. So, yeah, again, the sad fall of a truly moral icon, Sean Combs, unthinkable in such an industry. Cannot believe. So, when your moral exemplars fail this way, it really is a disappointment. Folks, every time you connect to an unencrypted network, cafes, hotels, airports, any hacker on that same network can gain access to your personal data. We're talking passwords, financial details, everything. Here's the kicker. It doesn't take much technical knowledge to hack somebody. Some cheap hardware is necessary. A smart 12-year-old could do it. Let that sink in. Your data is valuable, more valuable than you might think. Hackers can make up to $1,000 per person selling personal info on the dark web, which is why I use ExpressVPN. It creates a secure encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet. Hackers can't steal your sensitive data. In fact, it would take a hacker with a supercomputer over 1 billion years to get past ExpressVPN's encryption. ExpressVPN is incredibly easy to use. You just fire up the app, you click one button to get protected. It works on all devices. We're talking phones, laptops, tablets, and more, so you can stay secure on the go. I never go online without ExpressVPN. In today's climate where cancel culture is always on the hunt for ammo, protecting your personal information isn't just smart, it's necessary. Secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/Ben Shapiro Show. That's EXPRESSVPN.com/Ben Shapiro Show. You can get an extra 3 months for free. expressvpn.com/Ben Shapiro Show. Meanwhile, the New York Times has a report today about young women and how they have moved to the left over the course of the last 8 years. What the data show is that women aged 18 to 29 identified as liberal at a clip of about 28% in 2001 through 2007. It had risen to a little over 30% by 2008 to 2016. And now it has jumped all the way to 40%. Meanwhile, the number of women who are identifying as conservative has dropped from 28% all the way down to 19%. And a lot of the folks in the political science industry are confused by this, except for the fact that this has been driven entirely by a media narrative that Republicans are mean to the ladies. And this started actually in 2012. It exacerbated in 2016 because Donald Trump and because of Donald Trump's rhetoric. And this has led to a massive gender gap that is broken out in which men feel as though they are being extirpated from their masculinity by the left, and in which many women feel that they are being treated with casualness or disdain by people on the right. And both of those phenomena are bad. And the reality is that, the Republican Party and how it talks about women, it should be a deeply respectful relationship with women, as it should be with men. I think that some of the rhetoric that has emanated from the right, that's anti-feminist, but has kind of veered off sometimes into the anti-female, is dangerous. And I understand that a lot of it's reactionary and driven by the feminist left's attempts to basically say that masculinity is in and of itself toxic. But the reality is that the message of conservatism for all of time and the message of traditionalism for all of time is that men and women are complementary, that actually they form a single solid unit, that there is no such thing as true masculinity without true femininity, and there is no such thing as true femininity without true masculinity as well. That is why family is the basis of a society. It is the locus of a society. It is why the individual is important within the context of the family, but a human being who is cut off from familial relations or community relations is kind of half of a human being. That's, I think, the message in Genesis when it says that Eve is made of Adam's rib. The idea is not that she is then subservient to Adam. The idea is that they are two halves of a whole. And that is why the idea is that when man and woman are married, when they mate, then they become one flesh. That is a reunification of what was meant to be a complementary pair. The right needs to re-embrace that message. And I think most of the right knows this, but there is a part of the right that really doesn't. It needs to re-embrace that message as opposed to exacerbating the gender divide. And on the left, what the left has done to young women by suggesting that men are completely superfluous, and what they've done to young men by suggesting that men are completely superfluous, and that the only kind of good men is a sort of submissive beta, is a real societally degrading thing to do. Are you tired of the lies and the twists of the mainstream media talking points? Yeah, me too. Join me in my newest series, Fact, where I dismantle and bring truth to this tiring mainstream agenda.